The prodigy's discovery. Mira Zhang stared at the holographic display floating above her workbench, her dark eyes reflecting the dancing quantum patterns. At 12 years old, she was probably the only kid in her middle school who spent lunch breaks reading doctoral theses on quantum mechanics. But today, something wasn't adding up. And that was exactly what excited her. "Mom," she called out, not taking her eyes off the simulation. "I think I found something weird." Dr. Sarah Zhang poked her head into the garage-turned laboratory, where old hover car parts shared space with cutting-edge quantum computing equipment. Her daughter's workspace was a perfect reflection of humanity's current place in the galaxy, simultaneously primitive and innovative. "Weird good or weird bad?" Sarah asked, recognizing the intense focus in her daughter's expression. After 15 years as Earth's leading quantum physicist, she knew that look. It was the same one she wore when standing on the edge of discovery. "Look at this." Mira manipulated the hologram with practiced ease, her small fingers dancing through the light. "When I adjust the quantum entanglement field like this..." The simulation shifted, particles moving in ways that defied conventional physics. It shouldn't do that. But it does. Every single time. Sarah moved closer, her professional curiosity piqued. The simulation showed quantum particles behaving in ways that violated several fundamental laws of physics, laws that their alien neighbors had insisted were immutable for millennia. "Have you tried?" Sarah began, but Mira was already pulling up another simulation, running it through standard containment. "Yeah. Look." The new hologram showed the same impossible reaction, but this time within the confines of a controlled environment. "It's not an error in the math. I've checked it 17 times. The implications slowly dawned on Sarah, her 12-year-old daughter, working on what was supposed to be a simple science fair project, had just stumbled upon something that the greatest minds in the galaxy had missed. "Mira," she said carefully, "I think we need to call the Institute." The Galactic Institute of Scientific Achievement was housed in a crystalline structure that floated serenely above the capital city of New Geneva. It was here that the galaxy's most brilliant minds gathered to share discoveries, advance knowledge, and, more often than not, remind humanity of its place in the cosmic hierarchy. Dr. Selnak, the Institute's head of quantum research, examined Mira's data with all 4 of his eyes, his scaled skin shifting from green to purple, a sign of extreme skepticism among his species. "Fascinating," he said, in a tone that suggested it was anything but. "And you say a human child produced these results?" "I did it myself," Mira said firmly, standing as tall as her 12 years would allow. "I can show you the experimental process." "That won't be necessary." Zelnak's dismissal was polite but firm. "While we appreciate Earth's enthusiasm for scientific pursuit, what you're suggesting simply isn't possible. The quantum laws established by the Arcturian Council have stood for 12,000 years. Laws can be wrong," Mira insisted. "Just because something's been accepted for a long time doesn't make it true." A ripple of murmurs passed through the assembled alien scientists. Sarah placed a protective hand on her daughter's shoulder, recognizing the growing tension in the room. "Perhaps," said Selnak, his scales now a deep purple, "it would be best if you focused on more age-appropriate pursuits. I believe Earth still has those charming science fairs. Something involving plants or simple chemicals might be more suitable." Mira's face flushed, but her voice remained steady. "I can prove it works. Let me demonstrate." "My dear child." Zelnak's tone was dripping with condescension. "Quantum mechanics isn't like your Earth chemistry sets. One cannot simplify." The air in the center of the room suddenly shimmered. Every piece of scientific equipment in the chamber began registering impossible readings. Mira stood with her hand on a small device she had pulled from her backpack, her expression a mixture of determination and triumph. "This is a working prototype," she announced to the stunned silence. "It creates a controlled field where quantum entanglement can be manipulated at will. Watch." Before anyone could stop her, she pressed a sequence of buttons, A pencil floating in the demonstration field began to exist in multiple states simultaneously, not just the binary states of traditional quantum mechanics, but in a spectrum of possibilities that should have been impossible. The room erupted in chaos. Some scientists rushed forward with scanning equipment, others backed away in alarm, and a few simply stood frozen, their various biological indicators displaying extreme shock. "This is impossible," Zelmak whispered, all four eyes fixed on the demonstration. "The energy requirements alone would." "It uses less power than a standard food replicator," Mira said calmly. "The equations are actually pretty simple once you stop assuming they have to be complicated." Sarah watched with a mixture of pride and concern as her daughter proceeded to demonstrate increasingly complex manipulations of quantum states. She knew what this meant. Her child had just changed everything. And change, especially in the galaxy's scientific community, wasn't always welcomed with open arms. As if confirming her fears, she noticed several Institute members quietly leaving the room, presumably to contact their respective governments. A discovery of this magnitude, made by a human child, would send shockwaves through the galactic community. "Mira," she said softly, "I think that's enough for today." But Mira wasn't finished. With a few more adjustments to her device, she created a field where the very fabric of space-time began to fold in ways that made several alien scientists' sensory organs shut down in protest. "The applications are practically unlimited," she explained, her eyes shining with excitement. "Energy production, space travel, medical technology. We could help so many people with this, or cause unimaginable destruction," came a quiet voice from the back of the room. Ambassador Krell of the Centaurian Alliance stepped forward, his crystalline form refracting the light from Mira's demonstration. "A child has created something that could either save the galaxy or tear it apart. The question is, what do we do now?" The room fell silent again, but this time the silence was heavy with implication. Mira looked up at her mother, suddenly understanding that her discovery was about to change more than just the laws of physics. Sarah squeezed her daughter's shoulder. Whatever came next, they would face it together. After all, that's what humans did best: face the impossible and find a way forward. The device in Mira's hand continued its quiet hum, rewriting the laws of physics while the galaxy's greatest minds grappled with a truth they had long denied. Sometimes the greatest discoveries come from the most unexpected places, even from a child who dared to question why things couldn't be different. Ripples across the stars. News of Mira's discovery spread through the galaxy faster than a quantum wave collapse. Within days, the once quiet Zhang household had become the epicenter of a scientific storm that threatened to reshape the very foundations of galactic society. In her makeshift laboratory, Mira continued her experiments, blissfully unaware of the political turbulence her discovery had triggered. She had moved beyond simple demonstrations, pushing the boundaries of what her device could achieve. The garage walls were now covered with holographic equations that would have given most theoretical physicists a headache. "Look, Mom," Mira called out excitedly. "I figured out how to make it work on organic matter." She gestured to a small potted plant that was simultaneously growing and ungrowing, its life cycle existing in multiple states at once. Sarah watched with a mixture of amazement and trepidation. Outside, she could see the news drones hovering, their cameras trained on their house. Representatives from every major galactic power had been attempting to contact them, their messages ranging from diplomatic overtures to barely veiled threats. "Honey," Sarah said carefully, "we need to talk about what's happening." Before she could continue, their home's AI announced an incoming priority transmission from the Galactic Science Council. The holographic projection materialized in the center of the lab, showing the stern faces of the Council's leading members. "Dr. Zhang," began High Counselor Vertak, his crystalline form shimming with barely contained agitation, "your daughter's experiment has caused considerable concern among the scientific community." "You mean because it works?" Mira interjected, stepping into view of the projection. "I've already compiled all my data. Would you like to see the latest results?" The council members shifted uncomfortably. A Thoraxian scientist with multiple compound eyes spoke up, her mandibles clicking in distress. "Young human, you don't understand. What you've created violates the fundamental principles that maintain order in our galaxy. The quantum stability acts were established for a reason." "But they're wrong," Mira said simply. "The universe doesn't care about our laws. It cares about what's possible." In laboratories across the galaxy, the most brilliant minds were attempting to replicate Mira's results. The Arcturian Science Academy, renowned for their quantum expertise, had assembled their finest researchers for the task. Their facility, a massive structure that orbited their homeworld's largest moon, hummed with activity. "Impossible," muttered Chief Researcher Zixtal, his tentacles twisted in frustration. "The energy requirements alone should make this unfeasible." Yet the data from Earth was undeniable. Somehow, a human child had achieved what their most advanced quantum computers had failed to accomplish. Back on Earth, Mira was demonstrating her device's latest capability to her increasingly worried mother. "See, it can actually manipulate probability itself. Watch what happens when I—" The device hummed, and suddenly the laws of cause and effect began to blur. A cup of water on her desk simultaneously spilled and didn't spill, each reality equally valid until observed. "Mira," Sarah interrupted, "the Centaurian Alliance has just issued a statement calling your discovery the most dangerous advancement since the creation of antimatter weapons." Mira paused, her excitement dimming slightly. "But it's not a weapon. It's a tool. Look." She adjusted the device again, and the spilled/not spilled water began arranging its molecules into complex patterns. "We could use this to purify contaminated water on colony worlds, or heal radiation damage from solar flares, or—" Her voice trailed off as she noticed her mother's expression. "They're not going to let me keep working on this, are they?" Before Sarah could respond, their AI announced another priority message, this time from Earth's Defense Council. The holographic projection showed General Chen, her face grave. "Dr. Zhang, we've detected multiple unauthorized vessels entering Earth's solar system. The Galactic Council is demanding we turn over all research related to your daughter's discovery. They're citing Section 7 of the Technology Containment Protocol." Sarah's heart sank. Section 7 was reserved for technologies deemed too dangerous to exist. The last time it had been invoked, an entire star system had been quarantined. But Mira wasn't finished. She stepped forward, her young face set with determination. "General Chen, I've just finished the calculations for something they need to see." She began typing rapidly on her holographic interface. "Mom, remember when you said some things are too dangerous to share? What if we could prove it's more dangerous not to share this?" The device in her hands began to pulse with a new frequency. Around it, reality itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting to see what this child would do next. In the depths of space, aboard the approaching Galactic Council vessels, alarms began to sound. Their quantum sensors were detecting something unprecedented, a cascade of possibilities emanating from Earth, each one more remarkable than the last. "High Counselor," reported a junior scientist, their scales shifting to emergency crimson. "The human child. She's not just manipulating quantum states anymore. She's rewriting the fundamental constants of the universe itself." In the Zhang's garage laboratory, Mira stood calmly as her device performed the impossible. Around her, the very fabric of reality rippled like water, but within the field she had created, everything remained perfectly stable. "It's not about breaking the laws of physics," she explained to the stunned faces in the various holographic projections. "It's about understanding that they're not laws at all. They're more like suggestions, and once you understand that, you can suggest something better." Sarah watched as her daughter, this impossible child who had dared to question the universe itself, demonstrated to the galaxy's greatest minds that their understanding of reality had barely scratched the surface. In that moment, she realized that the true danger had never been the discovery itself, but the fear of what it represented. the possibility that everything they thought they knew could be wrong. As the implications of Mira's latest demonstration rippled across the galaxy, one thing became clear: the universe would never be the same, and it had taken a child's unfettered imagination to show them why. The warning signs. The Galactic Council's emergency session was held in a chamber designed to accommodate over 300 species. Today, it felt crowded with tension rather than bodies. On the central display, a simulation of Mira's latest experiment played on loop, showing the impossible becoming possible again and again. The humans cannot be allowed to retain control of this technology, declared Ambassador Vex of the Proximian Collective, his crystalline form vibrating with concern. They are too young, too impulsive. Their child has created something that could unravel the very fabric of space-time. High Counselor Vertak raised a stabilizing tendril. Let us not act hastily. The last time we attempted to forcibly acquire human technology, we learned some uncomfortable lessons about their resourcefulness. In the shadows of the chamber, a figure moved. Kithril of the Shadow Consensus, rarely seen at council meetings, stepped into the light. Their void-black form seemed to absorb the chamber's illumination. Perhaps, Kithril suggested, their voice like silk over steel, we should approach this indirectly. Back on Earth, Mira was starting to notice the changes. Her school's security had tripled overnight. Strange vehicles appeared and disappeared on their street. Her online access to scientific databases began encountering mysterious errors. But she wasn't worried about any of that. She had made another breakthrough. "Mom," she called out, her voice echoing through their now fortified garage laboratory. "I figured out why they're really scared." Sarah looked up from her terminal, where she had been reviewing yet another official request for Mira's research data. "What do you mean, honey?" Mira's fingers danced through the holographic interface of her device. "Watch this." The air shimmered, and suddenly a small sphere of pure darkness appeared, floating serenely above her workbench. "It's not just about changing the laws of physics. We can create spaces where different laws apply entirely." Sarah felt her blood run cold. "You mean?" "Yep," Mira beamed. "We could create regions of space where any rules we want apply. Imagine safe zones around hospitals where no one can die, or schools where it's impossible to lie. Or..." The laboratory's security system suddenly flashed red. "Multiple incoming vehicles detected," announced their AI. "Energy signatures match Proximian technology." Through the reinforced windows, Sarah saw several sleek vessels descending from the clouds, their surfaces rippling with advanced stealth technology. They had finally made their move. "Mira," she said calmly, "remember the contingency plan we discussed." But Mira was already working, her small hand steady as they manipulated the quantum fields around their home. "Don't worry, Mom. They can't get in unless I let them." Outside, the Proximian vessels deployed their most advanced quantum disruption fields, designed to neutralize any technology they encountered. They didn't work. Their sensors couldn't even detect the building anymore, though they could see it with their visual systems. Inside, Mira explained as she worked, "I've created a bubble where their technology operates under different principles. Out there, their quantum disruptors work perfectly. In here, they're really good at playing cat videos." As if to demonstrate her point, every display in the Proximian ships suddenly began showing Earth felines in various amusing situations. High above Earth's atmosphere, the Galactic Council's observation fleet watched with growing concern. "The child is demonstrating capabilities beyond our worst projections," reported Science Officer Zix. "She's not just manipulating reality. She's creating localized pockets of alternate physical laws." "How is she powering these effects?" demanded Admiral Cree of the Enforcement Division. "That's the most disturbing part," Zix replied. "She's not. The energy readings are minimal. She's simply suggesting to the universe that it should work differently, and it's agreeing." In the depths of space, other forces were moving. The Shadow Consensus had deployed their most sophisticated autonomous probes, designed to infiltrate and analyze any technology they encountered. The probes never reached Earth. They were found later, transformed into what appeared to be small art installations, peacefully broadcasting relaxing music. Back in the council chamber, the debate had turned frantic. "We must act now," insisted Ambassador Vex. "Every moment we delay gives the child more time to expand her understanding." "And what would you suggest?" asked Vertak. "Our most advanced containment technologies have proven worse than useless. The last team we sent was turned into a harmless light show." "Perhaps," suggested Kethril, "we should consider that our fear is precisely what makes this situation dangerous. The child has shown no hostile intent. Her actions have been entirely defensive." "Defensive?" scoffed Vex. "She has rewritten the fundamental laws of physics in her local space." "Yes," Kethril replied softly. "And what does it say about us that our first response was to try to take that ability from her by force?" On Earth, Mira sat cross-legged in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays showing the various forces gathering in space. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even angry. She was thinking. "Mom," she said finally, "I think I know what we need to do next." Sarah looked at her daughter, this impossible child who had challenged the universe itself and won. "What's that?" Mira's fingers began dancing through the quantum fields again. "We need to show them why being afraid of knowledge is more dangerous than any discovery could ever be." Above her workbench, reality began to shift and change, forming patterns that would soon teach the galaxy a lesson about wisdom, fear, and the remarkable insight of a child who had dared to ask, "Why not?" The warning signs were clear, but they weren't warnings about the dangers of Mira's discovery. They were warnings about the dangers of fear itself, and the remarkable things that could happen when someone was too young to know what was impossible. Power and protection. Earth's response to the galactic community's threats was not what anyone expected, least of all the Galactic Council. There were no military mobilizations, no diplomatic outbursts, no threats of retaliation. Instead, humanity did something far more powerful. They shared. Universities across Earth began freely publishing papers analyzing Mira's discovery. Children's science programs started featuring simplified explanations of her work. Public libraries hosted quantum physics workshops where kids could experiment with basic versions of her principles. "You can't contain an idea," Dr. Sarah Jung explained to the hastily assembled Earth Defense Council. "So let's make sure everyone understands it." In her lab, Mira continued her work, but now she had help. Other children, inspired by her discovery, began sending her their own ideas and experiments. Her garage laboratory had become a hub of young minds questioning everything they thought they knew about reality. "Look at this," Mira exclaimed, showing her mother a message from a 10-year-old in Kenya. She figured out how to use the quantum field to purify water, and this boy in Brazil found a way to make plants grow in any environment. The Galactic Council watched in horror as humanity's children, unburdened by centuries of impossible assumptions, began innovating with Mira's discovery in ways their best scientists hadn't imagined. "This is unprecedented," muttered Science Officer Zix, monitoring the flood of innovations emerging from Earth. "They're not treating it as a weapon or a source of power. They're treating it as a toy." High Counselor Vertak's crystalline form clouded with concern. A toy that could reshape reality itself. In orbit around Earth, the Proximian fleet remained in position, but their mission had become considerably more complicated. How do you contain a technology that every human child was now learning about in science class? On the planet's surface, something remarkable was happening. As various alien powers attempted to infiltrate or influence Earth's governments, humanity responded with characteristic adaptability. Parents formed protection groups for young scientists. Teachers incorporated quantum defense techniques into their curricula. Grandparents shared stories about their own childhood discoveries, encouraging a new generation to question everything. In her laboratory, Mira had made another breakthrough. "Mom, remember how they're worried about the technology being dangerous. She manipulated her device, creating a small field of altered reality. Watch this. Within the field, a complex series of quantum interactions played out. But instead of the chaos the Council feared, the result was beautiful. A cascade of cause and effect that automatically stabilized itself. I figured out how to make it safe, Mira explained. The field naturally prevents harmful applications. It's like training wheels for reality. Sarah watched in amazement as her daughter demonstrated how the technology could be used without risking universal constants. You've built-in safeguards. Better than that, Mira grinned. I made it so you have to understand why something works before you can make it happen. The more dangerous the change, the more you need to understand the consequences. The news reached the Galactic Council just as they were preparing their final containment strategy. Heathril of the Shadow Consensus was the first to understand the implications. The child has done what we never considered, they announced to the stunned council. She's made understanding a prerequisite for power. In schools across Earth, children were already adapting to this new paradigm. Science fairs became showcases for responsible reality manipulation. Physics classes taught both the how and why of quantum mechanics. Earth's youngest generation was growing up with an innate understanding of the universe's malleability and its need for careful stewardship. The alien powers that had sought to suppress or steal the technology found themselves facing a unique problem. The more they tried to take it by force, the less it worked for them. Only those who took the time to learn, understand, and respect the principles could access its potential. Humanity's protection of Mira's discovery wasn't achieved through weapons or walls, but through something far more powerful: education and understanding. They had turned a potential weapon into a tool for growth, a feared technology into a catalyst for learning. In her lab, Mira continued to receive messages from children around the world, each one sharing their discoveries and innovations. "Mom," she said one evening, looking up from a particularly inspiring message, "I think I know what we should do next." Sarah, who had watched her daughter change the universe with a child's curiosity and wisdom, smiled. "What's that?" "We should invite them to learn with us." Mira gestured to the starlit sky visible through their laboratory window. "All of them, even the ones who tried to stop us, because maybe that's what they really needed, not to take the discovery, but to understand it." Above Earth, the Proximian fleet received an unexpected transmission, an invitation to a virtual science fair, where Earth's children would demonstrate their understanding of quantum mechanics through projects designed to benefit all species. The galaxy was about to learn an important lesson about power and protection. Sometimes the best defense isn't a weapon or a wall, but the simple act of sharing knowledge and understanding. And who better to teach that lesson than a child who had seen the universe not as it was supposed to be, but as it could be? A child shall lead them. The first Galactic Youth Science Symposium was held in a rather unusual location, a pocket of space-time where the laws of physics were just a bit more flexible than usual. Mira had created it specifically for the occasion, a place where young minds from across the galaxy could safely experiment with the fundamentals of reality. The key, Mira explained to her diverse audience of alien children, their parents, and various galactic dignitaries, is to remember that the universe isn't strict, it's playful. You just have to learn its games. The assembled alien children watched in wonder as she demonstrated, their various sensory organs tracking the quantum fluctuations with natural ease that made their adult counterparts deeply uncomfortable. A young Proximian, their crystalline forms still somewhat translucent with youth, raised an appendage. "But what if we make a mistake?" they asked, their voice chiming with curiosity rather than the fear that had dominated their elders' reactions. Mira smiled, adjusting her device. "Watch this." She deliberately introduced an error into her quantum manipulation. Instead of catastrophe, the field simply rippled and corrected itself, like water finding its level. The universe doesn't want to break. It wants to dance. We just need to learn the steps. In the observation gallery, The Galactic Council watched with a mixture of amazement and chagrin as children from hundreds of species began to grasp concepts that their finest scientists had declared impossible. A young Thoraxian figured out how to make their mandibles phase through matter without disrupting atomic structures. A Centaurian child discovered how to fold space-time into origami-like patterns that could revolutionize transportation. High Counselor Vertak turned to Sarah Jung, his crystalline form shifting through colors of bewilderment. How did we miss this? All our years of research, our countless theories. You forgot to play. Sarah replied simply. You were so focused on controlling the universe that you forgot to dance with it. Down in the demonstration area, Mira was working with a group of children on a project that would have given their physics teachers heart attacks across multiple quantum states simultaneously. They had created a space where probability itself was visible, manifesting as shimmering threads that could be gently rewoven. See, Mira pointed to a particularly complex intersection of probability lines. When you understand how it all connects, you can help it become what it wants to be. Kithral of the Shadow Consensus, watching from their preferred darkness, finally understood. We feared the power to reshape reality, they murmured, but we should have feared our own lack of imagination. The symposium became a regular event, hosted in different regions of space-time, that the growing community of young quantum artists, as they came to be known, created together. Earth's education system was revolutionized, with children learning quantum mechanics alongside basic arithmetic, not as a set of rigid laws, but as a conversation with the universe itself. The changes rippled out across the galaxy. The Proxinians, who had once sought to contain Mira's discovery, now hosted some of the most prestigious quantum art installations in known space. The Thoraxians incorporated probability weaving into their architecture, creating structures that existed in harmony with multiple layers of reality. Even the traditionally rigid Arcturian Science Academy opened a division dedicated to what they termed intuitive quantum dynamics, though everyone else just called it Mira's method. One evening, as Mira sat in her expanded laboratory, now a favored gathering place for young scientists from across the galaxy, she watched a group of children from different species working together on a project to help dying stars rejuvenate themselves. "Mom," she said, her voice thoughtful, "remember when they were all scared of what I discovered?" Sarah nodded, watching as a young Proximian used quantum fields to demonstrate stellar core dynamics to their peers. They were afraid of change. It's a grown-up thing. "I think I understand why now," Mira replied, making a small adjustment to help the children stabilize their stellar simulation. They thought power had to be controlled. They didn't realize it could be shared instead. The galaxy had indeed changed. The Galactic Council still existed, but its chambers now included a junior division, where young representatives could offer their perspective on cosmic matters. The feared technology containment protocols had been replaced with innovation-sharing guidelines, focused on understanding and responsibility rather than restriction. Mira's original device sat in a place of honor in her laboratory, though she rarely used it anymore. Like all great discoveries, it had evolved far beyond its original form. Every child now learning to reshape reality did so in their own way, adding their unique perspective to humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the understanding that the universe was not a thing to be controlled, but a partner in an endless dance of discovery. "You know what the best part is?" Mira asked, watching as the children's star regeneration project began to show promising results. "We'll never run out of impossible things to try." And across the galaxy, in laboratories and classrooms, in quiet corners and grand institutes, children of all species continued to prove her right. They reshaped reality not with the careful fear of their elders, but with the joyful curiosity that had first led a 12-year-old girl to ask why things couldn't be different. The universe, it turned out, had been waiting for exactly that question. And so the story that began with a child's curiosity became a galaxy's journey of rediscovery. The weapons they had feared never materialized. Instead, they got something far more powerful, a future where each generation could look at the fundamental laws of reality and ask, with all the wisdom of youth, what if? The answer, as Mira had known all along, was limited only by their imagination, and that perhaps was the most powerful discovery of all.